Welcome to the Golden Bro Awards, recognizing 2020's best and brightest. I'm your host, Sarah Newman, and I'm joined by the College Football Bros.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I am the youngest bro, Michael Newman.
I'm the middle bro, Ryan Newman.
And that would make me the oldest bro, Trey Newman.
All right, so this is, of course, the 4th annual Golden Bro Awards. And the way we determine these is all three of us submitted a top 3 list for each award. So you get 3 points for first place, 2 for second, 1 for third. And for the first time this year, we gave the listeners, the 4th bros, a vote. So their collective ballot on the Google Forms link we posted will count as the 4th vote here. So thanks everyone for voting. And these are, of course, recognizing the top performers of this past 2020 season. And if you'd like to see us decked out in formal attire for the occasion,
looking dapper,
be sure to subscribe on YouTube. We're in suits. Sarah's got a dress on. Trey's got a lovely, what color is that tie?
Oh, it's a little green and blue, and it's
lots of different colors. So there you go.
Very nice.
Check it out. Let's, without further ado, get to the first award of the night.
Which team had the nation's best offense?
The best offense. I think this one's maybe the easiest answer of the entire Golden Bros. My first choice, and I think as everybody's choice, is Alabama. I mean, when you have 3 out of the top 5 Heisman winners or vote getters on the same offense, it's going to be Bama, and including, of course, the Heisman winner in Devontae Smith. I mean, Mac Jones, one of the most efficient quarterback seasons ever. Najee Harris was incredible. They were number 1 in yards per play, 7.7. They were tied with actually BYU, but I think Alabama's schedule might have been a little bit harder, a little bit harder than BYU. So they were just incredible. They were second in scoring. Do you know who the first was? I know Michael will know this.
Kent State, yeah.
Kent State, the Golden Flashes. Hey, shout out to Kent State, man. They were great. They were great in their 4 games that they played this year. But again, Alabama, far and away the best offense this year. Not even close.
Yeah, they averaged even slightly more points per game than last year's LSU's offense, which is crazy. I had, just to bring up an honorable mention here, I had Florida second on my ballot. I thought Kyle Trask, at least in the regular season, I thought he had arguably the best regular season of any quarterback in the country. And they put up big numbers on the best defenses they played. 38 on A&M, 44 on Georgia, 46 on Bama. So they deserve a nod here as well.
Totally agree with you there on Bama, of course, and then Florida. And then if I had to mention anyone else, Ryan, you kind of touched on it, BYU. They led the nation with 7.9 yards per play. And every time I watched BYU, I was just so impressed the way Zach Wilson navigated that offense. But Bama clearing away.
All right. Who'd the 4th bros go for, Ryan?
And the Golden Bro for the best offense.
You're not announcing the award. Don't take Sarah's job.
Oh, man.
Come on, Ryan.
I'm not good at it. I'll let the girl.
Who's the 4th bros? Who was on their ballot, though?
The 4th bros was number 1 was Alabama.
Yeah, no surprise there.
No surprise. Right. No surprise.
Let's get to the winner.
And so the Golden Bro for the best offense goes to Alabama.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
A lot of suspense there for sure.
Yes.
All right, moving on.
Which team had the nation's best defense?
For me, I mean, I actually kind of liked Northwestern. They were just incredible in the Big Ten this year. I mean, they had their linebackers, Patty Fisher, Blake Gallagher, Mike Hankwitz, the defensive coordinator, retiring this year after 50-plus years of coaching, Pat Fitzgerald. They had an incredible group. They stymied basically everyone they played. They made Ohio State scratch and claw in the Big Ten championship, only held them to 22 points. And they did it with an offense that didn't help them out at all on the other side of the ball. So that was what was more impressive to me.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I had them second on my ballot. I feel like there were 3 or 4 teams you could have easily put number 1 here. I went with Cincinnati. I just love their secondary. Ahmad Gardner and James Wiggins both were All-Americans in that secondary. They were 4th in the nation in yards per play allowed. And the best offense they faced, offenses they faced, they did well. So UCF, I know they put up a lot of points, but there were a lot of possessions that game. They allowed 5 yards per pass attempt against UCF, which is insane. 3.3 yards per carry. Held SMU to 13 points. Georgia, which was on fire at the end of the year, held them to just 24. So I thought they were deserving.
This was definitely an up in the air category here, unlike the offense. Because I went with Georgia as my number one here. They were only 2 teams scored more than 24 points against them all year. Florida and Bama, maybe the 2 best offenses in the country. They were 9th in the country in yards per play. But I remind you, like Florida, they went up against Florida and Bama, so those numbers are incredible when you consider the great offenses that they were playing. But they were number 1 in rushing yards per attempt and yards given up. And they were 20 yards better than the second place team. They gave up like 72 rushing yards per game. The next place was like 92. So they were just dominant against the run. But they were also top 10 in sacks. So they were just great against the pass and the run. So to me, they had kind of maybe the best talent and maybe the best kind of up front. So I went with UGA.
All right, Trey, who'd the fourth bros vote for?
Fourth bros, top 3 ended up being, they went with Cincinnati over Northwestern and Alabama.
Okay.
The Golden Bro for best defense goes to Cincinnati.
Ooh, Cincy.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's pretty crazy for a G5 team to get it because I don't know. I mean, it is hard to believe that the way they recruit, they can some of the teams we just mentioned, but I mean, they went out there and did it. They're
make one of our listeners real happy.
And Freeman, he parlayed it into a Notre Dame defensive coordinator job.
Yeah, he had plenty of options.
All right, moving on.
Which team had the best offensive big uglies?
So I went number 1 on my ballot, Alabama. It was honestly for me a pretty easy decision. Landon Dickerson was maybe the best center in the country. Alex Leatherwood, maybe the best tackle. And Mac Jones, just when you watch the games, he had an eternity to throw. Like I know Steve Sarkisian did a great job drawing up plays to get Devontae Smith open, but it helps when Mac Jones can stand back there forever. And they were 5th in the nation in short yardage success rate. So great, obviously blocking for Najee Harris as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Michael. I think Alabama was the clear choice, obvious number 1 again. But, I'll just go to my number 2 choice here, that they were also very strong, just not quite Alabama level. I'm going to say Ohio State. They were 7th in the nation in rushing yards per game. It seemed like they got better also towards the year went on. They kind of got a little bit more consistent. They were number 3 in yards per attempt. I kind of like that stat. They were behind Buffalo and Arizona State, who I think played like 3 games. So not a huge some sample size. And of course, Ohio State had to play Clemson, Alabama, Northwestern, some really, really good defenses. So it was really impressive the way they were opening up some holes, especially after losing a guy like J.K. Dobbins, who, was a once in a decade type of running back for them. So, I would say Ohio State.
Those were my top 2 as well. If I had to give another nod, it would be BYU. They were just visually impressive with their line play throughout the year. It really jumped off when they manhandled Navy at the beginning of the year. They just kind of moved bodies around and they were able to open up holes.
All right, and the fourth bros ballot was Alabama, BYU, followed by Notre Dame, who was second on my list. They deserve a mention as well.
They were 3rd for me. They were very good.
Okay.
The Golden Bro for best offensive big uglies goes to Alabama.
All right.
Yeah.
Gonna be a big night for Alabama. I would think.
Maybe so.
Every year. Moving on.
Which team had the best defensive big uglies?
I kind of mentioned them a little bit ago, but I'm going to say Georgia here. And to me, these guys are like the true big uglies because they aren't the ones for Georgia, at least their defense. They aren't the ones putting up these big stats. You can kind of look at their stats and you think, hey, these guys aren't putting up that big numbers, but they eat up blocks like crazy and they allow those linebackers just to have a field day. So they got guys like Jordan Davis, Malik Herring, Devontae Wyatt. I mean, those 3 were just incredible. Just a load to handle, and then kind of opens up for like a guys like Azeez Olajari, who had 9.5 sacks. So they just were so tough against the run. They even collapsed the pocket, got a lot of sacks this year. I give a lot of credit to that front three that they would have consistently going strong for them. So yeah, I'm gonna say Georgia.
I actually my first choice was actually Pitt. They were third in the nation, giving up only 93 yards a game rushing. They were Patrick Jones and Rashad Weaver, 16 and a half combined sacks on that D-line. Weaver actually forced 3 fumbles as well. They were as good as they come. I mean, and again, this is another instance where very dominant when you don't have that dominant offense on the other side. So they're on the field a fair amount. So I
without their best player coming into the year, essentially, that D-line.
Who did they lose before?
Twyman, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I forgot about that. He opted out. Yeah. It's crazy. Pitt, that's happened 2 straight years for Pitt, because last year Weaver, I think, got injured before the season.
Yeah.
And they were still great. Yeah. So I had Pitt number 1 on my ballot as well. They wreaked so much havoc and stopped the run. So not much more you can ask for. I want to give a shout out to Iowa, who was second on my list. Davion Nixon was a consensus All-American on the interior. Chauncey Golston, first team All Big Ten. They were loaded. So 2.8 yards per rush allowed by Iowa.
Very good.
They were stout.
And how about the fourth bros, Ryan?
Yeah, the fourth bros goes to
dramatic announcement like Sarah, Ryan.
Yeah, going bro. The best defensive goes to fourth bro. Oh, they had Pitt and Clemson tied for first, and Iowa was third. So yeah, we're all right on the same track. They had Clemson.
Now we get the dramatic reading from Sarah for the actual winner.
Mine was real dramatic. I don't know what you're talking about.
The Golden Bro, the best defensive big ugly, goes to Pittsburgh.
All right. It's good to see somebody like Pittsburgh get one in there.
Exactly. Right. All right. Next award.
Who was 2020's surprise team?
Well, for me, it begins and ends with Coastal Carolina, the Chants, the podcast favorite. I mean, they were picked last in the Sun Belt. You've probably heard the story. Not one person could have foresaw the season that they ended up having. I mean, you had a freshman quarterback, a smaller offensive line. You got the big boys of the conference, App State, Louisiana. They were supposed to dominate, and it's just incredible what they ended up doing and being the kings of that conference.
Yeah, it's just, for me, they were number 1 as well. And they beat BYU also, like on a late scheduled game. So they really proved they were legit. Also, shout out to San Jose State. They were picked second to last in their division in the Mountain West before the season. Ended up going 7-0, winning every game by double digits in the Mountain West. Just crazy.
That was nuts. Yep. And he was like, Brent Brennan was 8-29 in his first 3 years at San Jose State, and then all of a sudden, boom! This year it was Starkel. What a year for Starkel! And
yeah.
How about you, Ryan? I had Coastals for sure, number 1, no doubt about it. And then San Jose State was my second. It was just those two, and then my third. Just they didn't have necessarily produce as far as wins, but I put Arkansas as my third team. Just they improved so much. They were a hair from winning like 5 games this year and going bowling. So. The Razorbacks, to me, Sam Pittman did an unbelievable job. They surprised me, that's for sure.
Yep. The fourth bros, they also had Coastal Carolina, followed by Indiana and BYU.
Okay. Yeah.
The Golden Bro for 2020's surprise team goes to Coastal Carolina.
The
Chants. I know we've brought this up a million times on the podcast, but this was the team that in our Patreon we selected as our G5 team of the year, that we just decided to make our second favorite team, some random G5 team. Chose Coastal, and they had the most amazing year ever. I can't get over that.
I was a little skeptical when we chose it, but I'm so glad we did.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. That was fun for, because our team stunk in Nebraska. So it's fun to have somebody else to cheer for that was actually good.
For sure. Okay. Next award.
Who deserves the Loubrosa Award for the nation's best kicker?
I love this award because you can kind of very easily, I don't need to go watch film of all these guys.
Yeah.
I can just kind of look at the stats here. Yeah. Where did you kick it from? Did you make it?
Yeah.
And I'm going with a guy who was perfect on the year, Jake Oldroyd from BYU. He was 13 for 13. So not a lot of kicks, but he was 3 for 3 from beyond 50. So that kind of did it for me. He proved it from a long distance. And I actually have strong feelings about who won the Loubrosa. And, why don't you guys tell me who you guys have for this Loubrosa, and I can comment.
Well, I'm probably going to be going against what
I'm going to come after
your
you.
point is. Yeah, you're coming after me. But Jose Borgalis from the U, so Miami, he ended up winning the Groza, like you just mentioned. He hit a 57-yarder. I always think that's impressive. You can hit one from deep. 9 of 11 from over 40 yards, made everything inside of 40, all the extra points as well. And what's ironic is he was an FIU transfer, and he helped beat Miami a year ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree with Trey. I went with Borgalis as well. Sorry, Mike. But it was just the fact that the impact of his strong leg that actually was kind of helped them win some games. That huge long field goal, of course, at 57, and then just his kickoffs were impressive too. He was a good kickoff guy, so I feel like you can't underrate that. As we know from sometimes we see these kickoffs and it's just atrocious. You just give up good field position. He wasn't one of them. He was great.
All right, that's fair. Maybe that's a little extra juice he's got there. But I just thought that if you're going to go with Jose Borgalis, I thought Cade York from LSU had a better resume, because Cade York missed one more kick. So Borgalis 20 for 22, Cade York 18 for 21. But he had that was with 7 attempts from beyond 50 yards. I think that was like 4 or 5 more than Borgalis, if I remember right. So he was 6 of 7 on those from beyond 50. So the degree of difficulty there.
It's kind of an impossible award to give it to. So there's the stats are so close on these. It's so hard to decipher.
It's true. And actually, to your point, the fourth bros were split as well. They had a tie for first place between Cade York and Jose Borgalis.
We're not even mentioning Will Reichert, who was perfect this year for Alabama.
For Bama, yeah, he had 1 field goal from beyond 45, so that's why he was.
Yeah, that's why I didn't get it, but he was still perfect. He made all 100 of his kicks.
Finally, have a kicker.
Exactly. Yeah. But there's some drama here. So who's the ultimate winner, Sarah?
The Golden Bro for the Loubrosa Award goes to Jose Borgalis of Miami.
Mike.
That's okay. He had a great year. I can live with it.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Who was 2020's breakout player?
This is an obvious one, Ryan. Obvious winner.
Obviously, por supuesto, of course. I'm going with Grayson Mccall, quarterback of Coastal Carolina. The freshman just absolutely led the remarkable year for Coastal. Of course, they had a lot of great pieces, but it felt like Grayson was the swag that they kind of needed to have such a great year. He came through in the clutch. He was just a stud. He had 33 total touchdowns to just 3 picks. He rushed for nearly 600 yards, averaged 10 yards per attempt passing. I mean, he was just a gamer. Whenever they needed it, he performed. So he was just so much fun to watch, and just a guy like that, just getting it done every time he needs to. He was a baller.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic when I said it was obvious, because there's like 30 guys you could easily pick for this award. This was tough. I had McCall third on my list. I could have had him first, but I did have safety Brandon Joseph from Northwestern at the top of my ballot.
Yeah.
Didn't play as a freshman last year, and this year led the nation with 6 interceptions in only 8 games and was a consensus All-American.
That's pretty dang good. Yeah, I of course liked Grayson Mccall. I had him on my ballot, but I actually at the top I had Brees Hall, Iowa State. A lot of people going into this year are obviously familiar with more Brock Purdy, but Hall really busted out this year. I mean, he led the nation in rushing. He had a period of 7 straight games where he rushed for over 130 yards, capped it off 136 in the Fiesta Bowl. And then I did want to give a hat tip to Jalen Phillips on the D-line for Miami. Yeah. He seemed to be kind of a bust of a big-time recruit at UCLA, transferred to Miami from UCLA, and Manny Diaz had him playing really well on that D-line.
One more shout out I want to give is to Jordan Strahn from Georgia State, a linebacker. He was a former walk-on And he was a junior this year. In his career, he had 1.5 tackles for loss, 0 sacks. But this season, he was third in the nation with 9.5 sacks. Just
Wow.
came out of nowhere.
I mean, there's so many guys. I want to mention too. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Malik Willis, a
Yeah.
Liberty quarterback, transferred from Auburn, just couldn't get it going there. And all of a sudden, he's just like one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, leads a team that only loses one game. And then Carson Strong for Nevada. I mean, he had like 27 touchdowns and 4 picks. I mean, he was incredible. So
yeah, if you looked at our, if you voted in this and you looked at our ballot, we put like 25 names on there.
Yeah,
And we had a little
order.
other if you want to put someone else. So
yeah.
Ryan, I shudder to ask you this, but
No, I'm ready.
Fourth bros go for.
Fourth bros. There was a 3-way tie between Grayson Mccall, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones.
All great choices. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Golden Bro for Breakout Player goes to Grayson Mccall.
Yeah, baby.
All right.
No, I'm not rooting. I'm not rooting.
No, yeah, but they're cleaning up here.
Yep.
Okay, on to the next award.
Who deserves the Chuck Brodenark Award for the nation's top defensive player?
This one was really tough for me. I ended up going with Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. I mean, almost to me, this was almost a career award. His sophomore year last year was just as good, but this year he was such a force. 7.5 tackles for loss. He had 4 interceptions, including a game-winning pick 6 against Tulane in overtime earlier in the year. Forced a couple fumbles all over the field. I'll let you guys get to a couple more and see if you get my other guy.
Yeah, I had Zaven Collins at the top of my list as well. He also had an interception to clinch that SMU game, so he kind of filled up the stat sheet as linebacker. My 2 and 3 were Patrick Surtain, cornerback for Alabama, just a shutdown corner. I remember Brian Kelly, I guess, before the national title or before the semifinals said, we're just not going to throw at him. So that's kind of the ultimate respect for a corner. And then number 3, Davion Nixon, I brought up earlier, I think, for Iowa, defensive tackle. He put up more tackles for loss per game than Ndamukong Suh did his senior year. So that's pretty nuts.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wonder if he could have kept that going for another 6 games.
I don't know.
That's impressive.
Pretty impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And my number 1 was also Zaven Collins. He was just all over the place. My number 2 was I have a couple of different ones here for 2 and 3. I had Talanoa Hufanga, Michael's boy, safety at USC. He was awesome. He averaged over 10 tackles a game, 3 sacks, 4 picks. USC may not have had a great defense, but Hufanga maybe kept it from being bad because he was all over the place. What a playmaker. And then my third guy, I'm going to give San Jose State a little bit more love here. Cade Hall. Definitely under the radar, but he was one of the main reasons San Jose State had a resurgence, especially on that D. In just 7 games, he had 10 sacks. That was just 1/2 of a sack behind the national leaders. And those guys had played, there was 2 guys that he was behind, and they had played 3 more games and 5 more games than he did. So, give him a handful more games and, he would have
Cade Hall could have been breakout player as well. That's another.
That's
guy,
true.
right?
I should get very true. Yep. He was a stud.
Yeah, I would have had Hufanga if USC played 1 or 2 more games. That 62 tackles in 6 games is crazy. But the fourth bros, they had their top 2 was Zaven Collins along with us and Teron Jackson. So,
Coastal, more love for Coastal.
Yeah,
good.
Okay, who's the winner?
The Golden Bro for the Chuck Brodenark Award goes to Zaven Collins.
Yep.
All righty. Some G5 love once again. Let's talk about some quarterbacks here.
Who deserves the Davy Bro Bryan Award for the nation's top quarterback?
So we have the advantage here compared to the awards that shall not be named, the Home Depot Awards. I guess I will name them, but we are, of course, much more reputable than them. We had the bowl games, we had the playoff semifinals to decide who the best performances were. So I'm going Mac Jones. If he hadn't already clinched it in the regular season, I think that the playoff he had was incredible. Highest pass efficiency rating in college football history, highest ever QBR, highest completion percentage ever, 5th all time in yards per attempt, 41 touchdowns, 4 picks. Just ridiculous season. I know he's got all that great talent around him, but there's been a lot of guys with really good talent and very few have come close to what he did.
That's a fair pick, Mike. But I'm gonna go against it.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm gonna go with Kyle Trask. I went with him when we did ask this question, like who should win the Heisman. I had Trask ahead of Jones, and I'm not holding the bowl game of his against him at all, just because he was practically playing with an entirely new team.
Yep.
He wasn't throwing to anybody that he had thrown to in the regular season, so that just wasn't fair. But he had 46 total touchdowns in just 12 games and 5 picks going into the bowl game. So it's, he threw for more yards per game than Mac Jones, had 4 more touchdowns in 1 less game than Jones. So, and he didn't have the benefit of a good running game at all. Like it was just all up to him. There was no ground game to speak of for Florida. So it was Trask just making plays left and right.
Yep. I feel like if Trask was on Alabama, I don't have really a doubt he couldn't have done at least sniffed what Jones did. He practically did on his own anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was hard. You had to go Mac Jones, of course, breaking all those records. And yeah, he's surrounded by those insane weapons like you touched on, Michael, and the Bros' best big uglies, but you still had to throw it and complete 77% of passes. Like that's not easy to do against air. So
no,
you bow down to Mac Jones there.
All right. And the 4th Bros had Mac Jones number 1 as well. A guy we didn't mention who, of course, deserves to be mentioned, Zach Wilson from BYU was second on their list.
Yep.
The Golden Bro for the Davy Bro Bryan Award goes to Mac Jones of Alabama.
All righty. We've finished with the quarterbacks. So what is next, Sarah?
Who deserves the Golden Bro for the nation's top running back?
Yeah, I'm going to go with, Trey already mentioned it. I'm going with Breece Hall. He had 1,572 rushing yards, which led the nation by more than 100 total yards. So easily there. Second in the nation with 21 rushing touchdowns. And he added a couple through the air. And this was kind of behind Iowa State's offensive line, which going into the year was kind of looked at as like, okay, maybe this is kind of the question point of Iowa State here. We knew they'd have a good D. We knew they'd have a good quarterback, and Breece Hall was good. But the line was probably performed better than we anticipated, but it was still not to be confused with Alabama. And he was just their workhorse, making plays left and right. So Breece Hall to me was number 1.
That's totally fair. I would have to go with Breece at the top of my list, but I also liked Jarrett Patterson, Buffalo. Only 6 games, still had over 1,000 yards, 3rd in the country with 19 touchdowns. And he had a back-to-back games where he had 301 yards and 409. Like what a ridiculous 2-game stretch he had. And so he was a monster.
Yeah. We all had Breece Hall at the top of our list just because he had roughly, pretty similar yards per carry average to the elephant in the room, Najee Harris, who is as large as an elephant, arguably. But Harris, though, we'll bring him up. 26 rushing touchdowns, really good as a receiver as well. Like he's a freak as well. So he'd be worthy at the top of the list too.
Elephant in Alabama. Nice, Michael.
I know. Yeah. I thought about that too. Yeah. It really works.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, the 4th Bros, they had some similar thoughts here, but they didn't pick Breece Hall. They had Najee Harris and Jarrett Patterson. So that was a snub. What's up, 4th Bros?
Hey, those are 2 great shots. Jarrett Patterson, Breece Hall, 180 rushing yards a game. Come on,
Breece Hall, man, deserves it.
All right,
we're too big of
wins. I think we know, Sarah.
The Golden Bro for the nation's top running back goes to Breece Hall of Iowa State.
All right. Sorry, 4th Bros. Our 3 Breece Hall votes overtook you there. Okay. Moving on.
Who deserves the Brolitnikov Award for the nation's top receiver?
Well, this might be the next easiest award of the night, I think.
Or is it?
Well, drama.
Okay.
But, it's safe to say if you win the Heisman, as a receiver, you're probably the best receiver. And Devontae Smith, so dominant, fun to watch. He just glides out there. He can catch it on the run, slow down for a back shoulder catch, use him in jet sweeps, you name it. He absolutely crushed every receiver in almost every statistical category there was. So you got to go Devontae Smith.
Except
Elijah Moore?
Elijah Moore was first in the nation in receiving yards per game, and he was first in the nation in receptions per game.
That's right.
So, I mean, yeah, he was 600 total receiving yards behind Devontae Smith, but Smith played like 6 or 7 more games than he did. So, or maybe 5. I don't know. It was a lot more games. Anyways, yards per game was the main thing there. So I think he's just, I agree that it's Devontae Smith. That's my number 1 pick. He was just incredible. But I don't think Elijah Moore is getting enough credit for how spectacular he was this season. Yeah. He was, I mean, any other year, he would be the number 1 receiver, no doubt. He was incredible. So Devontae just had all the limelight, that's for sure.
Yep, that was my 1 too. Jalen Darden from North Texas, I had 3rd. Yeah. He was 3rd in the nation in receiving yards and had 19 touchdowns. So big year from him. Kyle Pitts, obviously. I know he's a tight end, so it's hard to fit him into this receiver group. But
he played like a receiver.
Yeah, he was a freak.
Yeah. He even missed a couple games. And Darden, man, he was a gobbler. So the Fourth Bros, they had Devontae, of course, but they actually did go with Pitts as their second place guy.
Fair enough. Golden Bro for the Brolitnikov Award goes to Devontae Smith.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Okay, let's move on to the coaching side of things.
Who deserves the Frank Broyles Award for the nation's top assistant coach?
This is another tough one. A lot of guys to choose from. I went number 1, Marcus Freeman, defensive coordinator for Cincinnati, that we brought up, of course, moving on to Notre Dame. But Cincinnati having one of the best defenses in the country is just insane with their level of recruiting compared to the big guys. So that's why I thought he deserved to be up there. I also want to bring up my number 2, maybe not the SEC offensive coordinator you'd expect, but Jeff Levy at Ole Miss coming in. And in this offseason of all off seasons, it should be very difficult to install a brand new offense, especially with a quarterback who didn't have a ton of experience, wasn't the starter last year in Matt Corral. And yet he and Lane Kiffin came in there and they had one of the best offenses in the country. Like, it was insane. So that got him just ahead of Sark for me, even though I know Sark is had a freakishly good season too.
That's right. And I went Sark, and going into the year, I didn't really have a strong opinion either way on him. And I know he was handed the keys to a Ferrari, but he was really creative in how he got guys the ball. I mean, if you just watched the national title alone, you saw it on display how he opened it up for Najee he used him in wheel routes, opened it up for Devontae in multiple different ways, especially when the defense, that's their key, put Mac Jones in good spots. So that's the reason I went with Sark.
Yeah, I agree with Sark as well. Leading the best offense maybe ever should certainly give you some major points here. And yeah, I love the creativity. I mean, teams were going to try to double team Devontae Smith. They didn't want him to catch it. They didn't want him to give up 250 yards in the first half or whatever. But they were just so good at getting it to him in so many different ways. They just couldn't help it. But I'll go with my number 2 here, just to give a little shout out to another G5. Kurt Maddox, the defensive coordinator from San Diego State. They were second in the nation in total yards per game given up. So only behind Army, who loves to shorten the game. So they were awesome on that side of the ball. Just want to give a little more G5 love.
Sure. And the Fourth Bros had Steve Sarkisian at the top of their ballots, followed by Marcus Freeman.
The Golden Bro for the Frank Broyles Award goes to Steve Sarkisian of Alabama.
Very good choice. The Fourth Bros get their way, and same with Ryan and Trey. I can't argue against that. So
yeah, it's tough.
Yep.
Moving on.
Who deserves the Home D Bro Award for the head coach of the year?
This is always a tough one. Do you value somebody that's at the top, or do you value somebody that's at the bottom that kind of works their way up? It's a very hard one to kind of justify here. But for my number 1, I went Jamie Chadwell, Coastal Carolina. This was kind of America's darling team this year, and certainly the podcast darling. But they're a new FBS program, just their 4th year. They played and arguably the game of the year against BYU. I think that was just maybe the most entertaining. Maybe we had a little more riding on it than most folks, but the game was spectacular. And he did it with to have an undefeated regular season with a freshman quarterback with a team that wasn't expected to do very well, it was just magical. And I feel like you got to give it to him. It was almost seemed like a team of destiny, but he just did a remarkable job with them this year.
Yeah, I actually didn't struggle with this one too much either. Or you sound like did struggle a little bit, but yeah, I had Jamie Chadwell, Coastal, number 1. Brent Brennan, San Jose State, number 2. We brought up their crazy season. Yep. Number 3, Luke Fickell. I mean, I know they were expected to be good, but not quite as good as they were. I mean, for them to go undefeated, nearly beat Georgia, who people thought was a top 5 type team by the end of the season. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I went with Chadwell as well, and you could just tell the players really rallied and loved him. He got the most out of them. Tom Allen amazed me as well. He was on my ballot, outperformed my expectations. And then Michael, and then Michael, you touched on San Jose State and Brent Brennan. I mean, winning every game by at least double digits is just crazy in the Mountain West. Like if you told me Boise did that, that's one thing. But San Jose State, whoa.
Yeah, true.
I'm just going to quickly read through a few names here. I have to. It's just there's so many guys you could list here.
Nick Saban.
Nick Saban, yeah. Alabama. Matt Campbell, Iowa State. Mike New at Ball State, winning the MAC. Kalani Sitake, BYU. Hugh Freeze at Liberty. Like the list goes on and on. There's Jay Norvell, Nevada. He could have won this. So many guys.
No doubt.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Fourth Bros. Fourth Bros. They were going with, they had Nick Saban and Jamie Chadwell at the top. So they showed a little more love for the champs.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
The Golden Bro for the Home D-Bro Award goes to Jamie Chadwell of Coastal Carolina.
little Sean's homerism showing up here. But I really think just objectively, like, you look at what their season win total expectation was compared to what they did.
Well, and he won the Coach of the Year as it is. So,
well, that's that stupid Home Depot award that no one cares about. Yeah, he won that. Okay,
I know.
Thank you, Sarah.
The media.
Yeah, Sarah, give us the next award here.
What was 2020's Game of the Year?
I feel really bad what I'm about to say right now. BYU Coastal. I mean, Mormon's first mullets, like just the way it came about too, with the last minute scheduling, 2 undefeated teams, and it lived up to the hype with Coastal winning 22-17, stopping BYU at the 1-yard line to end it. Like, I really thought that was the game of the year. I mean, there's a few that you could have gone with as well. I want to give love to a couple more G5 games. What's that?
After we go, of course.
Fine, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to take our thunder here.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go with well, I don't want to do it, so I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go with a different one. Clemson at Notre Dame. The one where Notre Dame won in overtime, double overtime win for Notre Dame. Maybe the biggest win in Brian Kelly's tenure there. That was of course awesome. We know Trevor Lawrence was out, but Uyunglele came in and played fantastic, and their defense was missing a couple guys, but it was just a remarkable game. Number 1 going down, double overtime. Ian Book led a great drive at the end of the fourth quarter to force overtime. Of course, it was just magical. And then, of course, after the game, the scene was just awesome in South Bend. So that kind of justified, that just sent that got him into the playoff, of course. But then it just kind of justified. I had always felt Brian Kelly was getting a little bit of a hard given a little bit of too much of a hard time for not necessarily getting all the way to the top, even though he's winning like 10, 11 games almost every year. So that was a good justifying win for Brian Kelly in my eyes.
That was my top game as well. That when Ian Book fumbled late in the third quarter in the end zone, you kind of thought, oh man, well, there it is. Clemson got it. But then he led that 91-yard drive at the end to be clutch and force overtime. But yeah, that was quite the game. And then I also got to mention then Indiana, Penn State. Michael Pennix reaching out is just the play that a lot of us will all remember for this whole season. But before that, like Penn State, they scored when they didn't want to. You had the amazing drive to force overtime and 2-point conversions. They shouldn't have won the game. They were completely outgained. That was a crazy game.
Ryan, can I speak? Can I talk about?
Yeah. Hey, now that it's where we went, of course, go for it, Michael.
Okay, so I'll bring up UTSA at Texas State, which was like early in the year. And Texas State took a 41-28 lead late in the game. There was like 3.5 minutes left. For some reason, they didn't go for two to make it two touchdowns, which was very dumb. But it ended up working out for them because UTSA. Wait, I think I got that wrong. Texas State. It was UTSA that took the lead, right? I think I might have this wrong. However. And then Texas State, I think, came back. So Texas State scored a quick touchdown. Then they had like a 90-yard punt return touchdown to tie the game. Extra point to win for Texas State. They miss it. So they go to overtime. And the same kicker for Texas State misses like a 20-yard field goal.
It was a chip shot.
UTSA ended up winning. I think I have that right now with the teams. But anyway, it's just a crazy game.
It was remarkable.
And the fourth bros agreed with us. They agreed with me, at least, with taking BYU Coastal as the game of the year. But who won, Sarah?
The Golden Bro for the game of the year goes to BYU at Coastal Carolina.
All right, I promise.
Hey, you could have put Liberty, the bowl game, in Coastal Carolina.
Oh, let's bring up more Coastal games. Yeah, why not? Coastal Troy. That was a great
that's true too.
Comeback. Boom.
It was amazing.
This is the Sean's podcast. All right, let's get to the award of the night.
Who should take home the highly coveted Heisbro Award for the nation's most outstanding player?
I mean, I'm going Devontae, of course. What else can you say? I mean, he set records left and right. Absolutely dominant by a wide margin in a lot of the receiving categories. And, when Waddle went down, he was the primary target, and they still could not slow him down. If anything, he thrived even more. And then his first half in the national championship alone was just remarkable. It would have been fascinating to see what he could have done in the second half. I know they would have called the dogs off a little bit, but I wanted to see what he could have completed. But overall was so dominant, very fun to watch. I got to go Devontae.
Yeah, I had Devontae Smith. His, again, we have the advantage here for the Heisbro Award of being after the playoff games, and those kind of clinched it for me because 345 yards and 6 touchdowns in the playoff. And like we said, not even playing the second half of the national title. So I had him followed by Mac Jones. Efficiency was too hard to ignore. And Kyle Trask. I didn't dock him too much for that bowl game.
Yeah. I agree with you guys. Devonta Smith, playoff sealed the deal. No doubt about it. But I just, as my second and third, I just flipped with you, Mike. I had Trask second, and then I put Mac Jones third. So, but those were the top three. No doubt in my eyes.
And
okay, go ahead.
The fourth bros, of course, had to go with Devontae Smith as well.
All righty.
And the Heisbro goes to
a lot of suspense.
Devontae.
Oh my gosh!
Wow, he was amazing. Wow. That was awesome.
He's got to be so pumped right now. Devontae Smith watching right now. I'm sure
he'll send in his accepted speech any moment now.
For sure. Okay. Well, before we get to our rapid fire awards, we have a little bit of a special award here. Sarah, why don't you introduce that one?
Who deserves the award for the honorary fourth bro?
All right. We are so sorry to the fourth bro. The one, Sarah was perfect all night. She was
screwed up the fourth bro.
And the fourth bro gets nothing. No. This is going to a listener who really helped us out this year. He managed our College Football Bros Pick'em League for free. I mean, that makes us sound really cheap and stuff. We offered. We said, hey.
We offered, hey.
And he was like, no, I got you guys. So we appreciated that. And he hosted a Patreon trivia night for us, which was a lot of fun. So Sarah, do the honors for our fourth bro.
The Heisbro goes.
Oh no! You know what? Maybe he doesn't deserve this award. Sarah's saying he's telling us.
The Heisbro is kind of cool though.
Actually, maybe the Heisbro should be this award.
Yeah.
All right. Take two. We got this.
The Golden Bro for the honorary fourth bro goes to Joel.
Yay, Joel.
Yeah, Joel.
Joel.
He also won our Pick'em League.
He also
ran
that's
it.
right. He won it.
He
Which
ran
is a
it
little
and
fishy.
won it.
Yeah,
If you ask
It's
me.
definitely fishy.
No,
Yeah.
it's legit. It's legit, and I know that because I think I came in second, or I was up there. So
Yeah.
seems legit to me.
Yeah.
Checks in the mail, Joel. All right, let's get to some rapid fire awards. Thank you, Sarah. You did a great job for introducing and announcing all those awards.
Absolutely.
Yes. So first off, we're going to lead off with the Diaper Dandy Award for the best true freshman. The nominees are Bijan Robinson of Texas, great year, became dominant late in the year. Malachi Moore, the Alabama corner, lockdown opposite of Patrick Surtain. Emmanuel Forbes, 5 interceptions for Mississippi State. Kari Coleman, 15 tackles for loss, 7th in the nation for TCU. And then I do got to give some love to Deuce Vaughn. He was for Kansas State. He was awesome in their upset against Oklahoma. Little Darren Sproles out there. But the winner is
Drama, suspense, Diaper Dandy.
Will Anderson of Alabama. Going into the playoff, Anderson led the SEC and all freshmen with 7 sacks, 10.5 for loss, 52 quarterback pressures, ranked him second nationally. Pretty impressive for a young pup to do on a national championship team.
Yeah, that was one thing Alabama needed was pass rushers going into the season, and they were having to rely on freshmen, so he stepped up.
Yep.
Let's get to the next award, best stat line of the year. We have a lot of runner-ups here, so Trey, why don't you give us the best quarterback stat lines?
Sure. We got Graham Mertz, Wisconsin, in his first game against Illinois, 20 of 21, 248, 5 scores. You got Matt Corral against South Carolina, 28 of 32, 513 yards, 5 touchdowns. Malik Willis of Liberty versus Southern Miss, kind of a coming out party, 24 of 31, 345, 6 touchdowns. Not to mention he had 97 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And then finally, Justin Fields' performance against Clemson, and then Mac Jones in the national title. Those two were crazy in the playoff.
All right, the running back nominees were Jarrett Patterson's 2 games, 409 yards and 8 touchdowns against Kent State, and then 301 yards and 4 touchdowns against Bowling Green. And then the third running back nominee, Cameron Peoples of App State, had 22 carries, 317 yards, and 5 touchdowns against North Texas.
Impressive. All right, let's move on to the receivers. So the receivers' first stat line here was from Corey Rucker from Arkansas State. He had 9 catches, 310 yards, and 4 touchdowns versus Louisiana Monroe. Kayshawn Boat from LS.
Boute.
I like to say Boot. You know.
He's from the state, the Boot, Louisiana.
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough.
There you go.
Yeah, LSU guy. He had 14 catches, 308 yards, 3 touchdowns versus Ole Miss. And let's not forget Devonta Smith in the national title game in one half. 12 catches, 215 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Just remarkable.
Yep. Moving on to some of our defensive players. We got Grant Morgan, a linebacker from Arkansas, 19 tackles, 3 for loss, a sack, and a pick 6 against Ole Miss. Not too bad. Carlton Marital, linebacker for Troy, 21 tackles, 2.5 for loss, a sack, and a pick versus Coastal. Not too shabby. Charles Snowden, a linebacker for Virginia, 4 sacks, forced a fumble against North Carolina. 4 sacks, that's a lot. Joseph Masai, linebacker for Texas, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, forced fumble recovery against Okie State. And then finally, Nick Anderson, a safety for Wake, 11 tackles and 3 picks against Virginia Tech. And he actually, best part, earned a scholarship after the game.
All right, but the Golden Bro for the best stat line goes to Jarrett Patterson, Buffalo. 36 carries, 409 yards, 8 touchdowns, like we said, against Kent State. Just insane. Ryan, you think he was on your fantasy team last year?
Oh, my gosh.
He certainly was. Yeah, as was Devonta Smith. So it's pretty good.
Well, and they took Patterson out like with a few minutes left in that game,
Yeah.
too.
That's right. Yeah, he was going to break
know.
records, even more records. Yeah.
Come on, Lance Leopold.
All right.
That's why he didn't get our Coach of the Year, Lance Leopold.
Yeah.
He wasn't even mentioned.
No,
You got to just.
he deserved it.
Now, moving on to the play of the year. So I'm going to start us off here. We've got Tulsa. We kind of alluded to this earlier. Tulsa had a Hail Mary versus Tulane. So Tulsa was down to their third string quarterback in the game. Zach Smith and Seth Boomer both got knocked out. Tulane is up 21-14. Tulsa ends up driving down to the Tulane 37. Last play of the game, Davis Brin, third stringer, threw it up for grabs. Somehow Juan Carlos Santana ends up behind the defense, comes down with it as time expires, gets the tie, and then in overtime, pick six that ended up being one of the worst spread beats of the year for Tulane.
And that was Zaven Collins on that pick six.
It was.
So the Brodenark winner, I believe. And then, okay, last play of BYU at Coastal. We got to bring it up again, but Zach Wilson had, one last drive there with under a minute left, got it down to, I think the 18 or 17, and threw a pass to Dax Milne, 1 yard short, stopped at the 1 yard line, kind of like everyone talked about the Tennessee Titans Super Bowl many years ago, just short.
Kevin Dyson.
That was great. All right, I'm going to go with Cade York's 57-yard field goal to beat Florida. This one was, of course, the game was tied here at 34, and this was the famous throwing the shoe penalty against Marco Wilson of Florida that kind of gave LSU a little bit more field goal range extension there, got him into field goal range at least. But this game was just crazy because of the fog, the weather. It kind of got him, like, you couldn't even really see what was going on. So the usual TV camera, they couldn't even use because you just couldn't see the field. So they had to use like the over the head one the whole time. So it was definitely weird, but Cade York stepped up, nailed that 57-yarder to give LSU a 3-point victory at Florida. It was a huge upset.
But the Golden Borough Play of the Year goes to Michael Pennix and his play versus Penn State. I mentioned
close as it gets.
Yeah, it was. Indiana, they were beyond fortunate to be in the position, but Penn State didn't want to score. They did, gave Indiana a chance to come down and tie it into regulation. But the play, of course, is Michael Penix. They're going for two and the win in overtime. He scrambles, reaches his arm towards the pylon. The ball goes flying. The call on the field was touchdown. And after video review, it looked like he was short, but there was no way of really truly overturning it. And thanks to Penix's long arms, they got the upset win at the time.
Yeah, if you asked me to make a bet right now, like if God could come down and tell us whether it was short or not, I think I'd bet $0 because I don't know.
There's no way to know. It was too
live. I thought he was short, but I mean, when you slow it down, it was just too hard to tell.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, what's next, Ryan?
All right, so next we have the funniest / craziest play of the year, and the nominees are first one here. We got Liberty's play versus Coastal. This one was just crazy where Liberty was, okay, so the game was tied at 34. Liberty had the ball, first and goal from Coastal's 3-yard line. So they were trying to do the smart thing, Liberty was. They were trying to run the clock down and then kick a game-winning field goal as time expired. So first down, they give it to the running back, Joshua Mack, and he kind of like backs up a couple of yards just to make sure he doesn't go in, goes down. So now it's second down, but the clock is running. Second down is where it got crazy. So they do the same thing. They hand it off to Joshua Mack, except this time he kind of inches toward the line of scrimmage for some reason. And Coastal Carolina is like, they're trying to let him score. Like they want him to score. So they kind of grab him and try to kind of like pull him towards the end zone. Then the offensive line from Liberty's trying to pull him back, like, so he doesn't score. It's kind of like backwards football, but then he ended up fumbling, like Coastal's ended up stripping it, recovering it. And the game ended up going to overtime where luckily for Joshua Mack, Liberty ended up winning, but it was just such a weird, bizarre sequence. Liberty was trying to do the right thing. It statistically is the right thing to do, but execution.
And Coastal was trying to get him to do it.
Exactly.
They were like, please do it.
Yeah, come on in. But no, it was just, it was nuts. That was quite an ending to that game.
That was crazy. I had one, Rutgers and Indiana. They had a lateral. Rutgers, 4th and 32, late in the game. They're down 16. They're desperate. This play ends up taking 34 seconds. There were 8 laterals. You had offensive linemen throwing it over their heads blindly. They ended up going backwards about 20 yards before going forward. And they ended up just after all the pitches, they ended up scoring what looks like a touchdown, but apparently one of the laterals was slightly forward. So it ended up not counting, but incredible play.
And that was a touchdown for the cover. Would have been a touchdown for the cover. would have been a bad beat. But I'll one up you on this play because Western Michigan against Ball State. This play took a minute, and it was a big game. Like the winner goes to the MAC title. Ball State's up 3. Last play of the game, Western Michigan 16 laterals. Ball State stormed the field during the play. Somehow they didn't ever tackle anybody, and Western Michigan scored a touchdown for the win to go to the MAC title. But it also got called back on a forward lateral. So, almost the craziest play. I think that would have been the craziest
going
on
on
history.
Yes,
it's hard not to lateral forward when you're running pretty fast, because just you got to throw it like you can't just throw it sideways because it's going to go forward. You got to throw it like almost directly behind you because the speed of the ball is also that you got to take that into consideration. So
the physics
hard.
Bros. Wow.
I mean, it's like the Stanford Cal game, like that last pitch. I think one. All right, but the Golden Bro for funniest / crazy play of the year goes to the Marco Wilson throwing the shoe. Helped LSU move along down the field there, blew the game.
Crazy, and at the time eliminated Florida from playoff contention. Pretty much.
Yeah, it did. That was
all right. Moving on to, we only got a few awards left here, but the G5sman. It's the Heisman of the G5. The runner-ups were Malik Willis at Liberty, Carson Strong, Nevada, Dylan Gabriel, UCF, Jarrett Patterson, Buffalo, Sincere McCormick, running back for UTSA, Jalen Darden, North Texas receiver. But the winner of the G5sman, it's a homer pick, Grayson Mccall, quarterback for Coastal Carolina. I mean, he led Coastal to an undefeated regular season, 5th in the nation in pass efficiency, and he was a great runner. So deserving.
Yeah, he was. I'm going to move on to the upset of the year. Some of the nominees are Kansas State plus 27.5 against Oklahoma. They won 38-35 early in the year. Wild. Rice was getting 24.5 from Marshall. They won 20-0.
That was weird.
Very mystifying. Maryland was getting 27.5 against Penn State. They ended up winning 35-19. To his brother was looking good. Michigan State, they were getting 21.5 against Michigan. They ended up beating Harbaugh, and they kind of owned that little rivalry lately. And then Tulsa was getting 20.5 against UCF, and they won 34-26. And at the time, that was quite the upset.
Yep.
But the upset of the year award goes to LSU plus 24 against Florida. They won 37-34. No one saw it coming. Kyle Pitts out. Gators too good with that offense. No way LSU is going to keep up. But fog, shoe throws, spider cams. Cade York, crazy upset.
All righty. The final award is my favorite. It is the Art Sitkowski Award for the worst quarterback stat line of the year. By the way, Art Sitkowski had the second most pass attempts this year without an interception. So I really think this award kind of motivated him. It really did. Was not a nominee this year. Redemption for sure.
He was not going to throw a
pick. What's that, Ryan?
He would have rather thrown it into the ground than give his guy a chance, but maybe get an interception. He was that determined not to throw a pick. I don't know about that. I'll show those bros.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the nominees. Grant Wells in that game against it was against Rice. No touchdowns, 5 picks. Not great. Matt Corral for Ole Miss. He very easily could have had 2 nominations for the best games list and the worst games, but his worst one here was against Arkansas. 2 touchdowns, but 6 picks and a lost fumble. Travis Marsh of USF against Cincinnati, 6 for 13, 39 touchdowns, 0 touchdowns.
That's a lot of touchdowns.
Oh, did I say 39 touchdowns?
Yeah.
39 yards.
Yeah.
Sorry.
6 attempts. How does that happen?
Chase Cunningham, Middle Tennessee against Troy, 2 for 7, 10 yards, 2 picks. Arkansas, also a little shout out to a wide receiver, Traylon Burks, their star receiver, threw it 4 times this year. He was 0 for 4 with 2 picks. So maybe don't try that anymore.
Maybe stop the trick plays there.
But the Art Sitkowski Award for the worst quarterback stat line goes to Aaron Allen of Louisiana Tech for his performance against Georgia Southern. 10 for 24. So 24 attempts, 41 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
24 attempts for 41. Wow.
That is a whopping 1.7 yards per attempt. So that would have made freshman year Art Sitkowski, very proud.
No doubt about it. Wow, that's brutal.
So there you have it. That'll do it for this year's Golden Bro Awards. Thanks again to Sarah for hosting. Round of applause for Sarah and for making all of these images. She makes all the images for the podcast, all the backgrounds. So thank you very much, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah,
Thanks for
very
the Fourth Bros for voting. Appreciate that. If you haven't already, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. Helps our downloads. If you're listening, subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. We're at like 470, I think. So ways to go, but we're climbing. And we will see you next time.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.